Podcast City Network.
Welcome. This is the Rip Griffin Show podcast, a baseball podcast for baseball fans of all ages. Now, here's your host, Rip Griffin.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Rip Griffin Show. This is episode number 83 on tap for tonight's episode. We're going to be recapping some Lou Gehrig Day, some new and possible suspensions for doctored baseball's all-star voting, and Cleveland has come down to 3 teams. But joining me tonight on this episode is Ben Abel. Ben, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's always great to have you on the show. Before we get into tonight's episode, I just want to do a quick shout out real quick to Rob Fontenot on Astros Baseball Podcast. I was a guest on his show recently. I did not mention that last week, but I wanted to give him a quick shout out to say thank you for letting me come on his podcast. So thanks to Rob and Astros Baseball Podcast. And also, too, just remind everybody to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Let us know how we're doing. You can always find the show on all the major podcast platforms, Apple, Google, and Spotify. And as always, you can follow the show on Twitter at Rip Griffin Show. So on tap for tonight, let's start out with the inaugural Lou Gehrig Day. This is something that Major League Baseball came across in the offseason to kind of honor Lou Gehrig, but also to bring awareness to ALS, which is the disease that ultimately took his life at such a young age. And it was great for Major League Baseball to kind of get into that and to start, bringing in more awareness, because ALS, unfortunately, is a disease that has a 100% mortality rate. There is no cure for ALS. So, but I'm happy that Major League Baseball was able to do something like this. We talk about, Jackie Robinson Day and some other things that Major League Baseball is going to start doing in the future to kind of help honor these former players, these great icons and pioneers. So what did you think about it? I thought it was great. I thought that Major League Baseball did a fantastic job in honoring Lou Gehrig and ALS.
I followed it too, and I thought it was really a huge step forward to recognition of ALS. And I've read some stuff on this today, Rip, and the fact that he died in 1941 and it didn't really take mainstream in Major League Baseball until this year. That's an 80-year difference.
Right.
And when you talk about 100% mortality rate, you talk about some stuff I pulled out of Google related to ALS. It affects as many as 30,000 in the United States, with 5,000 cases diagnosed each year.
That's just
that's
a lot in a year.
That's a lot. And I saw a connection in another article I read in the Seattle Times about the connection with athletes in ALS. I don't know if that's been explored. And when you read about Lou Gehrig's life and you read this article and you see, why he took himself out of the game in 1939 and 2 years later he was dead.
Right. Yeah, and at such a young age, at 38, I believe. Yeah. And then he was inducted into the Hall of Fame just a year later at 39. But, now we know more about it than we did back then. And, for him to, he came into the league at 19 years old, and, he played his first game on June 15th, which was 1923. So just next week would have been his anniversary of being in Major League Baseball.
Right.
And, like I mentioned, 1939 was when he was inducted, but he was gone way too soon for the game of baseball. I think in that era, he could have played at least several more years.
I think he could have. And I think one thing I'd like to bring to people's attention, and I think it's really important to remember, as much as you talk about ALS being Lou Gehrig's disease and it took 80 years, is to also recognize, and obviously it's way before my time watching baseball, is to recognize the accomplishments of Lou Gehrig, the player, the Ironman streak, and the fact that it took Cal Ripken Jr. how long until he broke it. And
Right.
what does that stand for? He like some of these accomplishments, right? I know I'm not trying to minimize it. 7 consecutive All-Star, Triple Crown winner once, most valuable player twice, 6 World Championship teams with the Yankees. I mean, that, like that alone justifies him being in the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
even
absolutely.
if he lived a full life.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
He was such an icon during
He's
that
a
area.
total icon.
Yes. And like I said, he was gone way too soon. And like you mentioned, it's unfortunate that Major League Baseball took this long to acknowledge him and give him a day like throughout Major League Baseball.
I saw
a lot of broadcasts last night during or throughout the day too, that there was a lot of people who were suffering from ALS that they were still in the early stages of it, but were able to kind of share their experiences of what they're going through. And they're very fortunate, and they're very appreciative that Major League Baseball is willing to make this disease known to everybody and to bring awareness to it. And I think it's great. I'm glad this is something that's going to be on a yearly basis from now on this day. Well, actually yesterday, June 2nd, but I'm glad. I wish, Major League Baseball needs to do more and more to kind of help become more proactive in different various things. We got breast cancer awareness that they do for Mother's Day and whatnot. So, and Father's Day, things like what was it? Like pancreatic cancer and things like that for Father's Day. So, it's good that Major League Baseball is acknowledging these types of diseases and bringing awareness, and that's the goal. That's the goal, to raise money to help defeat these diseases. So, and
I think it's really valuable. It's different for myself in Canada. I was going to mention this, but there's actually somebody who contracted ALS, and it went to the Supreme Court of Canada, a lady, and she fought for the right to die.
Really?
Yeah, she did. She fought for the right to die. The woman's name is Sue Rodriguez. She basically took her own life February 12th of 1994. I'm just looking at this. And she got ALS in 1991. And she took it all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada and lost. As a right to die.
Wow.
That was a very high profile thing in Canada, probably 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So for anybody who's, it's just something I bring in just because it's something when you talk about Lou Gehrig and ALS, and then I remember this high profile case when I was younger. Man, what a dividing issue, right?
Exactly. I know this is something we don't hear a lot of these stories, these, situations where that, people that are suffering,
right.
It consumes them. That's basically what ALS does. And
I don't know enough about the disease. I've been trying to read up on it and understand it.
Yeah, same here.
And Lou Gehrig is like the most high profile case. And when you think about how, like we said, how long it took, but I really hope, like Jackie Robinson Day, this is going to be something that's,
So
that's gonna carry forward.
Exactly. So hopefully, with this day, this inaugural day that Major League Baseball has brought about, that maybe we can get some more funding, some more things to kind of help, cure this disease. So, but again, hats off to Major League Baseball for
I think so.
coming forward, doing something like this, and to honor one of the great icons of Major League Baseball in Lou Gehrig. So. A Yankee great. I know he's very well spoke about, and he's always in there at the Hall of Fame of course in Canton, But excuse me, Cooperstown. I'm thinking football.
I've never been to Cooperstown, so
I've never been to Cooperstown either. But I got to get my sports right. It's
that's okay.
There's
That's
two
all
different
right.
Hall of Fames there. But
I got the Florida Marlins wrong last week. Remember when it was the Miami Marlins?
That's okay. That's okay.
Old
It happens.
school. Thank
Old
you,
school.
Mac, if you're listening or watching.
But yeah, congratulations to Major League Baseball for honoring Lou Gehrig and ALS.
Great achievement.
So
great achievement.
But kind of just changed gears a little bit. This is something that's been in the news, that's been talked about for the last several months now. Actually, dating back to last season when the Cleveland Indians have decided to rebrand. And of course, this is the last season of the Indians. That there's three new names that are in the works for possibly taking the place of the Cleveland Indians. That's going to be the Spiders, the Guardians, and the Avengers. Now, if you don't know, the Spiders were the name in Cleveland, were the team in Cleveland back in the early 1900s. They were the Cleveland Spiders at one point. I can actually pull that up here to kind of tell you what. Let's see.
Just looking it up here because it's one of those things. Yeah, here you go. 1887 to 1899.
Yeah. So late 1800s, early 1900s. So
yeah,
they weren't the Spiders for too long.
Mm-hmm.
And then they became they were the Cleveland Blues starting in 1900, the Cleveland Bronchos, the Cleveland Naps. I always forget about the Cleveland Naps, but
what's a nap?
I don't know. I don't know what it would be like. You're taking a nap, or I don't know. But then in 1915, they became the Cleveland Indians. So, out of these three, which name would you like to see?
Well, I think hopefully the guys whoever runs Marvel and Kevin Feige doesn't get mad if they use the term Avengers. But there's Avengers. There's I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of attached to the Indians name, and I get the whole political reasons behind it. But I just love the movie Major League so much, especially the first one, and the association it created for the Indians. Right, it's a bad baseball team. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the Spiders name is actually pretty cool. I noticed this year the Cleveland jerseys are just say Cleveland on them with the C. I actually really like that. I think that C hat is really sharp.
It really is.
And I can't imagine a guy like Tito wearing anything else. But Tito being Terry Francona, for those who don't know, I'm sure you do if you're following baseball. But it's a tough choice with name changes because I'm attached to the Indians name, Rip. But, I do really like the Spiders, actually, the more that I think about it. And what was the other one? There's Avengers, Spiders, and...
That was just those three, the Spiders, the Guardians, and the Avengers.
Yeah, I think the Guardians name doesn't do anything for me when I think of Cleveland, but I've never been to Cleveland, so... I don't know. I'd have to see the city. Maybe that would help. Maybe there's a way. I'm saying this as a joke. They could riff something off the Browns. There you go.
Bring a championship name to the Browns that the football team probably cannot. They're lacking. So, but the Spiders is probably going to be, at least in my opinion, going to be the name that they will go with and that they will start to brand. The Avengers are it's strong, especially when you've got that Marvel tie. I don't know how well it's represented in at least Marvel is in Cleveland. But
I don't know if they can copyright if the name's copyrighted. Probably not. I guess if they start to use stuff that look like characters in the movie or stuff from the movie, I could see that happening. But I actually like the name Spiders. I'll have to research it more. And, honestly, if there's a Major League history there, as somebody who's read Bill James's historical baseball abstract, I like that kind of baseball history. I I could see somebody really doing something with that.
Right.
I think that's a neat idea for a name.
The more the Spiders grows on me, but I was always a fan. And there was the Blues. I think the Cleveland Blues was. Let me go back. Yeah, back in 1901. We've got a lot of people disagreed, but you had the Red Sox, the Blue Sox. The White Sox. Excuse me, and then throw in the Blue Sox. Cleveland Blue
that could
Sox,
work.
Now a lot.
I was going to say it's going to take people a long time to get away from the Indians name.
Oh yeah, I
call them the tribe, or like all kinds of names. I'm thinking of all the names. But you could use Major League for the,
you get rid of Chief Oahu, so he's gone now. Yeah. But I always liked the Blue Sox. Where you have red, white, and blue, but a lot of people just disagreed because it was you've got the White Sox and Red Sox. You don't need another Sox team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if it's something about Spiders. Maybe it's just the name.
Now, there was a logo that came out, and I don't know if it was actually one of those that was leaked, but the hat was had the spider, then it had like the web spinning down with like the C kind of in it as well. Somehow the C and the spider were kind of spun together to kind of make like a web, and it was a pretty neat logo. I wish I would have had a picture of it to show, but I think the Spiders will probably be the team that, or the name that the Cleveland will go with. The Guardians, not so much. The Avengers, we don't know if that's trademarked or not. But I'm kind of sad.
I don't know if they could actually do that. I don't know if that's like something to do with copyright or whatever that would be, because of the whole Marvel universe and how prominent it's become, right?
Right.
But I do really like Spiders.
I think Spiders is going to be the choice that they go with. I think the branding of that is going to be phenomenal, especially how they market it as well. You can't go wrong with it. It's a strong name. One of the things that also too that I heard was the Hard Rocks, given that the Hard Rock of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, is in Cleveland, and that was a good tie-in for those two. So.
There must be a better way than Hard Rock. Like there's something you could do from the Hall of Fame,
like the Cleveland Rocks or something. Or there was another one too. I can't remember what it was, but I think Spiders is probably gonna be the way to go on this one here.
Yeah, no, I like that one.
But we should know here coming in. I want to say maybe towards the middle of the summer, maybe towards the end of the season, we might find out what they're gonna go with.
Next season.
Yeah, because there was an article that was by ESPN that they're going to come out, but it did not say when they were going to. Cleveland Buckeyes too was another team. It was a Negro League team in Cleveland,
right?
But since you got Ohio State, I don't think that would work too well. But there's an article on ESPN that they talked about it. And I think it's coming. I don't know when though, but it'll be interesting to see what they finally go with. To kind of get this cloud of the namesake kind of out of the way, so they can start to move on for 2022. But it'll be great for a new name to come. Unfortunately, the Indians will be no longer. I know we will still refer to them to the Indians for months to come after. Yeah. So, but. One of the kind of the other things that kind of just came up just today, actually, is there's been this talk over the last, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks now, maybe the last month, that of doctored baseballs by pitchers using some sort of foreign substance to gain higher RPMs on pitches and kind of get higher spin rates, things like that to get. To become more effective. Trevor Bauer has probably been the one that has been the most scrutinized based off his sudden improvements from one season to the next. It's primarily talking about his 2020 Cy Young season, where he was just so dominant in his
Trevor Bauer,
in his
Yeah.
I think 11 or 12 starts he had in 2020, where he won the Cy Young based on his ERA and his record. But it was an article in The Athletic. Kind of just it's Ken Rosenthal is the one that he posted on Twitter, but this is what he posted. MLB informed owners this week of severity of issue with pitchers applying foreign substances to baseballs. Sources tell The Athletic. Enforcement is coming, but league will follow a process involving communicating with players and umpires unions, as well as all 30 clubs. So let me ask you this. How do you think Major League Baseball is going to try to enforce this type? Because clearly the only way they would actually be able to get tipped off is if somebody says something or if an umpire notices it. But, I mean, players are getting pretty crafty in trying to conceal this. And I don't know how they're going to actually enforce it.
Well, unless they're physically, like, do you do it like a rule change or a rule dispute? Like, I'm trying to remember with baseball, what do you have challenges for? Unless like a major league manager of an opposing team does a challenge, says, I think this pitcher's doctoring balls. How do I prove it?
Right.
do they get the umpire to go check the balls or check stuff out during the game of the pitcher that's pitching? That's one way. And then I think with Bauer, didn't we talked about this a while ago, and I thought they what did they do? I thought they actually took some of the balls that he pitched with.
Right.
Didn't they? And actually they were going to go over a whole bunch of them, and then his agent said all this stuff on Twitter that was like, oh, this is a non-issue, it's not a problem. I was looking at Trevor Bauer stats from last year. You know, like we've talked about this before with that 2020 season. It's a shortened season. It's a smaller sample size. I'm looking at some of his advanced pitching stats. From last year, he had a 1.73 ERA. He had a 5-4 record, 11 starts, 2 complete games and 2 shutouts. Looks like it's highlighted here that led the league. A whip of .795. Now, Bauer so far this season, though, has a 2.2 WAR, 6-3 record, a 2.24 ERA. He's started 12 games, and he's got a whip of .825 and 96 strikeouts.
Right.
So is he still doctoring balls? Because it looks like he's having a good season again this season.
You know, watching him pitch just last week when he faced Houston.
I haven't seen him pitch for a while.
You know, and he struggled against Houston, and I can't help but wonder if it was just based on the environment. But there was a couple of strikeouts where he kind of had his off speed working. He was kind of working, off his fastball. But there's been some other games where he's pitched that he's just been racking up. I think there was
Let's look at his line here. I'm trying to see.
Was it in San Francisco?
Game by game.
Yeah, in his San Francisco, he looked like he was just dialed in. I think he had over 10 or 11 strikeouts. I wish I wish I can pull up his stats right now. But yeah, I mean, that's just one of those things. It's.
I read this one. Yeah, sorry. I was going to say I read this one a while ago, and I still have it saved and bookmarked. And this is when I'm still writing for Overtime Heroics and doing the Angel stuff and talking about Angels employees. And this guy who's the fired Angels employee, Bubba Harkins, lawsuit against the MLB and the Angels, and he was fired, right? And the fired Angel employee names Garrett Cole, Justin Verlander, and others, he says used his illegal product. So there's that article from the Los Angeles Times as far back as January of this year.
Right.
And it starts the article where it says basically it's Garrett Cole texting the Angels clubhouse manager, asking for help with a sticky situation.
Right. There's a pun intended right there.
Right. And it's interesting, right? Because I did a lot of research on this, and we're coming back to this. We remember what happened with Bauer. We remember, I remember reading that article about all those guys that are named. So if they move forward with this 10-game thing, are they going to take Garrett Cole out of the lineup for 10 games? And is it how many starts?
See, that's the thing, because there's a possibility. Somebody posted it on Twitter as well. I think it was one of the guys from Barstool Sports that the possible suspension if a pitcher is caught using some type of foreign substance on Doctor the Baseball is 10 games. Now, whether it's 10 starts or if that's just 10 games just as normal, which would be 2 starts that they would miss, given that if they do go for every 5th day. But it all comes down to how are they going to enforce this, because there's so many ways that a pitcher can kind of, whether they put it on the inside of their palm. Some guys use sunscreen. That's apparently sunscreen can give kind of a sticky substance on your fingers, so that might kind of aid in. Yeah, so are they going to ban sunscreen? So what if these guys have some type of skin where it's genetics, where their skin burns really easy out in the sun, and they need sunscreen, or you can sit there and wear sleeves, but that makes it too hot, especially down here in Texas where it gets 100 degrees. But it's interesting to find out how Major League Baseball is going to enforce these rules, because there's just honestly no really good way to do it unless a coach.
Well, no, there isn't. Like, I can see why they're doing it if they think it's widely affecting the game, but it begs that whole question: does it become like the steroid scandals, right? Like if they find out it's all these players that were, or I shouldn't say all these players, but all these pitchers that were using it, it's really high profile guys,
right?
And they say, okay, so it's Garrett Cole. You're going to take him out of the Yankees lineup for 10 games. They get to protest. They'll raise a shitstorm. Pardon me.
Yeah.
It's like if it's 10 games and he's not on the bench for 2 starts, but he's not in the clubhouse for 10 games. Okay, but does he get nailed for 10 starts?
Right.
Because then that's like potentially 40 or 50 games.
I guess.
I'm just thinking about. I don't know how every team runs their rotation, but or do they? I sometimes almost wonder if it'd be better just to they miss a start or 2, or they just say, look, like you get a fine, or the club gets a fine.
Oh, I'm sure a fine would be handed down for sure from Major League Baseball. Yeah. And if a pitcher misses a start or 2, it really doesn't. It will affect them as far as their routine.
Yeah.
But you put a guy on the IL for 10 days. That's essentially what it would be. Now I don't know if they would be able to have somebody come in like off the bench or be called up from the minors to take their place for 10 days and to put in their rotation. But I don't know. It seems like Major League Baseball is trying to they want to clean up the game. I understand that, but it's almost to the point. Just let them play. Here's one of the things. Yeah. Here's one of the things that I just thought of. You talk about the camera situation. These guys, they brought the cameras back. What you want to try to police and try to control the game, but yet you're bringing back something that you took away because of a team cheated and used it to their advantage, and now you have it. It's like, we'll take this away just right now, but we'll bring it back next year. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's temporary.
But and don't you think people would find other substances too? Like, if they really wanted to, right? They'll find other ways around it.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you can ever stop people from doing it, right?
Yeah, you're not. The only way that they would stop it, is if the suspension was severe enough to either have a effect on the player's career or have a detrimental effect to the team that could possibly keep them out of the postseason or even a World Series. That would be the only way that this would stop. It has to be a severe penalty enough to affect the team and the player. And because these guys are all about team first. And of course, they want to try to gain the advantage, and they want to try to, of course, they want to pad their stats as well, because that's how they get paid is off their stats. But they definitely are more team oriented, and if for some reason that they do something that's detrimental to the team, they could be out of baseball for good. And of course, they don't want that. They want to try to have as much longevity in their career as possible. And
yeah, it's interesting because do you take them out of the game? Like, how many they get caught once they get like banned? Or I get maybe it's going to adapt as they move on throughout the season, or throughout. Maybe it's like a cumulative if the player gets nailed more than once, right?
Right. Kind of similar to PEDs. You get your first, I'll call it strike. What is it? 20 games or something like that. You get caught again, it goes up to 80 games, and then it goes up to 162. Now I don't know what the penalty is. I'd have to research that. And then of course you're banned from baseball for life. And are they willing to do that for something that's getting a better grip on the ball and trying to get a better spin rate?
It's an interesting thing. I sometimes don't dig that deep into the StatCast and the metrics with StatCast about some of the really advanced metrics. There's some heavy stuff in there, right? But it's really hard to sort of go, okay, like what's the best way to police it?
Right.
Then it's like, I don't know. It's going to be really hard for them to do.
It'll be interesting to see how they go about and they kind of police it, because we just don't know for sure. But that's just something we're going to keep an eye on. We're going to kind of watch to see what they do as far as the penalty. Like I said, that came out in the Athletic just today, actually.
I didn't see it, but been following the issue because we talked about it on your show before, and because I had that article bookmarked from a while ago about the Angels clubhouse man, and about guys like Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander.
It'll be definitely interesting. Now, there was something that was coming out today as well, that Garrett Cole was on the mound and he was struggling, and they're kind of putting two together. Like, okay, well, he's struggling, but it's because he doesn't have. He found out that there's a possibility of suspension involved for doctoring of baseball, and he just went to complete crap today. No, that's a pitcher's going to have his good days and his bad days, even if you are Garrett Cole. And so I think that's kind of just silly right there. But
I think it is too. I mean, how many years of Garrett Cole's career would you examine?
Exactly. He was good when he was in Pittsburgh. He came to Houston. He was traded to Houston, and he became great. Now he's with the Yankees, and he's the most dominant pitcher in Major League Baseball.
Which may have nothing to do with him.
Exactly. I mean, every stop he's gotten better. He hasn't regressed. He's progressed and gotten better as his career's gone on. So that comment right there, of course, that's just the social media rumor that floats around, is a pitcher has a bad day and they automatically assume it's because he's not doctoring a baseball anymore. But we're not in the clubhouse. We don't know what's going on, what actually these pitchers' routines or what they go through. But something interesting that we can keep an eye on. We'll definitely probably hear more about that, like I said, from Ken Rosenthal in the Athletic. So, but to kind of change gears, to kind of finish off this last segment of the show here, we're kind of just rolling along tonight. So but that's good, because the All-Star voting has opened, and it starts today. Now, of course, we all know that the All-Star game has been moved from what was in Atlanta to now to Colorado. But did you get your bracket in? Did you fill out?
I did vote. I saw yours online too.
So I was kind of curious to see if maybe we have some of the same picks for the American and National League teams.
I don't think we do, because you voted for Lou Gehrig for first base, and I voted for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Okay.
And I was trying to figure out a way to vote and I was trying to figure out how to vote.
Right.
Like, I was thinking like how am I going to vote based on that? Based on who was available. I'm just looking at yours here. I voted for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at first, and I think what I based it on strictly was numbers. And I also, just because I live in Canada and I follow the Blue Jays doesn't mean, I'm trying to look at it objectively and look at the stats and not just look at batting average like we've talked about before, but some of the more, in-depth stuff. And honestly, if you look at the numbers, Guerrero Jr. is he's had a breakout season, right? It's to the point of where it's like, wow. I think I picked Altuve at second. Right. I can't remember who I picked at every position except for the American League DH Shohei Ohtani for sure. Just because of my Angels following and just because of his play this year and the two-way play. And I was talking to Matt from Overtime Heroics about, here's a classic two-spot player who's pitching and hitting. What's he going to do in the All-Star game? Is he going to hit, or is he going to pitch? Or is he going to do both? Maybe he doesn't qualify because the stats as a pitcher aren't quite good enough. But he's definitely up there as a hitter. I'm trying to look at who else I picked here. Definitely Ronald Acuna Jr., of course. If we're trying to get the pronunciation right, and my Spanish is not great. Definitely Acuna on the National League side. Buster Posey, yep, for sure at catcher. Tatis, yep. I picked Muncy from LA at first. I'm trying to remember who I picked at third. I noticed you based it on a lot of Texas players and Astros and Rangers, which I can understand. I don't quite have the same line and loyalty to certain sports teams. Mm-hmm. I generally try to look more at the players at the position, their stats, and what I know of the players' past accomplishments, right? And I definitely, looking at the outfield, obviously Mike Trout's going to be there. Obviously he's hurt, but you had Byron Buxton from the Twins, Michael Brantley for sure, Adolis Garcia I could see. Nick Castellanos. You had J.D. Davis at third. You didn't pick Nolan Arenado from now the Cardinals.
No, it's because Nolan Arenado he's been great, but J.D. Davis has been probably one of the top third basemen, which is odd because he's been more of a utility guy for basically throughout his entire career. He came over in that trade that from the Astros. They sent who did the Mets get? The Mets got Jake Marisnick and J.D. Davis, and the Astros got Blake Taylor, I think, a relief pitcher. But just to kind of, we mentioned, J.D. Davis for a second. He's batting .390 right now. He's got 2 home runs, but 7 RBIs. But his on-base percentage, his OPS, is a 1.089, which is higher than Chris Bryant, higher than Nolan Arenado. So, he's getting on base in more ways than one, and he's not doing it just for power like, Arenado is with 11 home runs, 36 RBIs. Chris Bryant's got 12 home runs and 36 RBIs. So it's more of the run production that I kind of went with, especially with J.D. Davis.
Well, that's huge, right? We talk about more advanced metrics, starting with runs created. Now it's weighted runs created plus. I saw somebody in a Facebook group recently drop stat lines on 2 players and asked the question, who's the better player, who's having the better season? And looking, the difference was, or the answer to the quiz question was, who had the higher weighted runs created plus.
Right.
And people are like, oh, yeah, it's the guy with the WRC plus is the guy who's going to, win, right? So, and All-Star games are always hard because I think when you look at All-Star games too, sometimes it's fan favorites. It's not always about stats or numbers or even MVP status to that point. It's just fans vote for their favorite players.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes this fun. And we talked about, first base, for example, on the American League side, you've got Vlad Guerrero Jr. I had Lou Gehrig, and if you look at average, these guys are sitting at 1-2. Vlad Jr. is sitting at a 335 batting average with 17 home runs, 45 RBIs, but Yuli is sitting right behind him with the 310, 8 home runs and 40 RBIs as well. So both of these two guys are at the top of their respective positions. They're driving in runs, they're scoring runs. From a defensive standpoint, it's close, but Yuli is probably the more defensive top first baseman in the American League. Based on, the guy's like a vacuum. He sucks up anything that gets hit towards him. So he's got a lot of unassisted outs and things like that is at the top of the list for the American League. So, not putting my fandom aside for a second for the Astros and actually, going off of the numbers, he sits there at the top, and that's one of the things that kind of led to my decision for Yuli. Then of course on the National League side, of course, Max Muncy is probably the sure in. He got
Freddie Freeman though too, right?
Freddie Freeman's is right on his tail, especially with him.
Rhys Hoskins from the Phillies.
Yeah,
right?
Brandon Belt. Pete Alonso, which Pete Alonso has been injured a lot of this for the last few weeks. Right. So he's kind of, if he hadn't got hurt, he probably would be at the top of this list of first basemen in the All-Star voting. Now this is only the first day, so things will change.
It goes on for quite a while, but it's just, I always try to look at, everybody's got a different perspective, and you look at the National League, you got Freddie Freeman, you got Rhys Hoskins, and look at the American League. This is one of Mark Feinstein's articles. And I was looking at it this morning. You got Carlos Santana, and you got Jose Abreu, the AL starter in 2018, will look to claim his position. Like how deep is that if you got Jose Abreu, the 2020 MVP winner in the American League? I know it's a shortened season, but how does it look when you've got Abreu and you got Guerrero Jr. and you got Carlos? That's why it's the All-Star game, right?
Oh, exactly.
That many guys available.
Yeah. One of the things that I did, especially at third base, was, I went with, for this one, I went with average. I went batting average.
Okay.
So, at the top is Johan Moncada, Alex Bregman, Rafael Devers. So the top three when we look at batting average.
At third base.
But
right.
Moncada has been one of those guys that has been very consistent at the plate. He's batting .299, so he's just a tick under 300.
Yeah.
He's only got 5 home runs, 30 RBIs, but his OPS is at 870, which is higher than Bregman's. Devers has got a 935, but his average is at a 279. So, but the White Sox got a lot of good talent, and they're great offensively at the plate.
They're good. I don't know what their as I said, I don't know what their pitching stats are specifically, but look what they've done with Lance Lynn, and Rodon got that no hitter.
Right.
So I think they improved their pitching, and I have to look a little more deeply into the stats, but they improved their pitching too.
Oh yeah.
And in the AL Central, they're probably the team to beat. I
Oh,
don't
for
think the
sure.
Twins. I don't think the Twins, the Indians, definitely not the Tigers or the Royals are going to touch him.
No. I think it's going to be the White Sox division. It's theirs to lose if one of these other two teams, like the Twins, for example, that happen to kind of just kick it in gear here pretty soon. But especially in the outfield for the American League, I actually do not have Mike Trout on my list, which is probably blasphemy. I'm gonna get a blasphemy.
I wouldn't, but I mean,
No,
look at some of the. There's like Mike Trout, Aaron Judge,
right.
Adolis Garcia, Mitch Haniger, and Trey Mancini. Okay, so like, and even a designated hitter, you got JD Martinez.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, with All-Star games, it's like fan choice versus how do you rank this, right? And
Right.
in the outfield, if you got Aaron Judge,
Yeah.
and Mitch Haniger and Trey Mancini, like any one of those guys is an all-star.
Yeah.
Right. So like, even if you don't
absolutely.
pick Trout, it's like Trout's one of the best in the game, but he's not the only good outfielder in the game.
Exactly. So of course, Byron Buxton, he's one of those that is at the top of the list for outfielders in the American League. Of course, from the American League, from the National League, Nick Castellanos as well. Jesse Winkler is probably another guy to keep an eye on. Michael Brantley for the American League. He's always Mr. Consistent, Mr. Professional at bat.
Yeah, he's really good. I'm impressed with him when I watch Houston. He always seems to be there.
He really does, and he had a streak of, it was several games where he had an extra base hit or a double. So he's always one that he may not beat you with power, but he's going to beat you with consistency at the bat or at the plate with his bat.
That's all that matters.
Exactly. And then I kind of threw in a wild card because this guy has kind of come into his own form. He's leading the American League right now and outfielders with 16 home runs is Adolis Garcia.
That's this guy from the Texas Rangers.
This guy has just come onto the scene and has just made a complete impact. He walk-off home runs against the Astros when they got swept in Arlington last week. Yeah. This guy has just come onto the scene, and he is really, really looking really good. He's one of those. I think he's one of the older. I think he's like 27 or 28, so he's kind of one of the older players, rookie players. He was a part of.
It's like Randy Rosarina. Right?
Rosarina, yeah,
from Tampa Bay. And is he on the ballot? I thought he was. I think I actually voted for.
Yes, he is.
I voted for him for outfield actually.
Yeah, so right now Randy Rosarina is batting .254, 7 home runs, 27 RBIs, but he's got a 740 OPS. So
great season for him. I'm thinking of his performance last year and in the playoffs last year.
So he's just a home run shy of tying Mike Trout who's got 8 home runs right now. So, but that dude, he's one to definitely keep an eye on too. That could definitely make this all-star team. Come just a few weeks in July. So, but a lot of great players. Like I said, this is only the first day that ballots were open for you to vote. So you can definitely go in and get your fan favorite players. Hopefully vote for them, get them to Colorado so you can see them in the All-Star game. So
yeah, because just looking at this too, you got Randall Grichuk from the Jays. Good season for him. Who else here? Teoscar Hernandez, who's a great player. Every time I watch the Jays, like he is. Yes. Like just Kyle Lewis, like who else? Hunter Renfroe. Outfield's hard because there's 3 positions. There's Justin Upton from the Angels. Like, there's a lot of really, really good players here. I don't think you can. That's the thing about an all-star game, right? And there'll be lots of debate going back and forth. fans, whatever else, about who was chosen and who wasn't, and then
Right.
it's Dave Roberts and sorry, who's the manager of the Rays? His name escapes me at the moment.
Kevin Cash.
Thank you. So there's basically those guys are going to manage. And it says pitchers and reserves for both teams will be determined through a combination of player ballot choices and selections made by the commissioner's office.
Right.
So if there's a guy who doesn't make the ballot or doesn't get in, but is like a strong candidate, I'd be interested to see who qualifies there.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. A couple guys I kind of thought would be more towards the top of the list, especially in the National League. Jason Hayward's out right now. I think he's on a rehab assignment down in AAA for the Cubs. But
Right.
Jock Peterson kind of came on the scene when the season first started. It got really hot, but he's been really cold. Batting .240 with 5 home runs and 19 RBIs. Mike Yastrzemski, he's always one to keep an eye on for the Giants. Definitely want to keep an eye on. Mookie Betts, of course, which is surprising. He's not. Of course, this is for home runs, but let me see what average is.
264.
So, he sits.
Bryce Harper's in there, of course, as he should be.
Yeah, 264 right now with 5 home runs from Mookie Betts. Surprisingly, Ronald Acuna Jr.
That's right. You got to get it right, man.
You got to get that enunciation.
So here's Juan Soto too, but his I know his numbers are low, but there's some Christian Yelich is in here too. 2019's MVP.
It's the guys you would think that would be more towards the top are kind of sitting at the bottom of this this ballot right now. So, but
it's interesting, isn't it?
It really is. Just looking at the numbers, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. We'll kind of keep it, watch as the All-Star game gets closer. I think voting closes at I think June 24th is when you can go.
I was just looking here. What does he say? By July, this phase 2 will last 4 days, concluding on July the 1st. Top 3 vote getters at each position. Each league would be revealed at noon p.m. ET on MLB Network. So Sunday. There's 3-4 weeks.
Okay.
I always look at the All-Star game too as kind of like an interesting signpost for the season when you have a full season. What's going to happen after the All-Star break? Because that's when it starts to heat up.
Exactly. That's what we're looking for.
Summer, August.
Yep.
Playoff races, teams trying to get players, address needs.
Yes, I think we'll see some teams that will be contenders definitely get into the trade market and try to buy to get them to October. So
who's a buyer and who's a seller?
Exactly. That's going to be one of the things that's going to be fun to watch. So
I think so.
Absolutely. But man, that's about all I've got on tap for this episode tonight.
That was fun. Thank you.
It was a lot of fun having you on. We'll kind of keep an eye on the All-Star ballots as we get closer. So it'll be interesting to see what players make the cut to on the final cut, really, to be selected for the All-Star game. So, well, that's going to be that's about it. Ben, I appreciate you coming on the show and talking some baseball.
Thanks for having me.
Like you've been on the last couple of weeks, so I truly appreciate very much. So
anytime. It's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, we're going to get more guests on the show and some of the other Overtime Heroics guys coming back, and whoever else makes an appearance.
This Mac and Steven are out, but hopefully we can get those guys back next week. So it'd be great. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at Rip Griffin Show. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Let us know how the show is doing. If you have a question you want to call in and get your voicemail on the air, you can always call in to the hotline. That number is 210-263-3253. So get your baseball questions in for next week, and we'll get those answered for you on the air. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Take care.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rip Griffin Show. Make sure to subscribe to the show on all the major podcast platforms. Follow Rip on Twitter at